afternoon from Los Angeles, and welcome to Stock Market Today. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at Zoom Video as well as Franco Nevada and Datadog, but we begin with a look at the major indexes. It's Alyssa Corum, and I'm joined by Ken Shreve. And Ken, the volatility continues. Just when we thought we were starting to get a little bit of upside momentum, another big down day today. The NASDAQ closing down over 3%. Same for the S&P 500, the Dow down about 3.4%, and small caps, the Russell 2000 closing down over 4% today. So it's still pretty ugly out there.
Still pretty ugly out there, and we did obviously have very bullish gains for the stock market on Wednesday, almost enough to confirm a new uptrend. But we kept the market in correction because we just didn't see volume come in higher than the prior session. But those big gains Wednesday all gone today. We mentioned another sharp declines for small caps, the Dow, the S&P 500. Coronavirus still on the market's mind. Certainly the number of cases in Washington state just recently, today rose to 70 from 39. And now the concern is, how much is the coronavirus going to spread in the U.S.? It's not a question of if it's going to spread, but just how much. So more relentless buying in bonds today. The 10-year Treasury yield went all the way down to 0.9%. So a lot of buying in bonds, gold prices rallying, and just not a good environment for stocks.
Right. Well, we'll continue to keep a close eye on those market conditions. But for now, let's turn our attention to a few individual names popping up on our radar, beginning with Zoom Video. A strong day for that stock on the heels of its quarterly earnings report out last night. That stock gaining 7% today in heavy turnover. It's kind of interesting. It was down after hours yesterday pretty sharply, reversing higher today, finding support at its 10-day line with a nice gain in strong volume. And here's a weekly chart there. It doesn't look like we're seeing coronavirus impact at all, but really just the opposite with Zoom, actually.
Yeah, like you mentioned, this stock was down sharply in after-hours trading. It was actually down in pre-market trading, too. The stock opened lower, but then it didn't take long for shares to reverse higher. By all indications, it was a good earnings report, much better than expected earnings and sales. They gave a good sales outlook for the current quarter. And then full-year sales, expectations were for full-year sales of about $869 million. They raised their forecast to $905 to $915 million. So you had bullish guidance. The stock responded accordingly. It is extended here. You don't want to. There are these coronavirus stocks that are rising and bucking the trend in down markets, but this one is extended. Too late to buy, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Zoom Video for a really nice earnings report. And the market was expecting a great report, and it got one.
Yeah, and elsewhere in the enterprise software space, Datadog also grabbing our attention. Datadog stock gaining over 6% today, above average turnover, and this is a name that we saw pull back to that 50-day line, now rebounding from that area, and that relative strength line looks like it's perking up into a new high.
Yeah, and Datadog closed near its high today, so that was positive. Not very good earnings from Splunk. That's an industry group peer of Datadog in the enterprise software group. So Splunk had a tough day today, but Datadog, no news moving the stock, but this is just a stock that had really, even when the market was falling, has been falling hard in recent days, it pulled back gently to its 50-day moving average and a nice bounce off the support level today. So something interesting going on in Datadog. Again, no headlines today, but big buyers were in the stock today.
Yeah, that they were. And a gold play also looking pretty sharp. We have Franco Nevada gaining over 3% today. Ken, it did pull back pretty sharply to the 50-day, but quickly rebounding higher, continuing its run from late last year.
The U.S. dollar has weakened considerably. That's lifted gold prices, and as money has been flowing into bonds as a safe haven trade, it's also been flowing into gold stocks. You can see the daily chart here for Franco Nevada, 4 straight up sessions, and it was a pretty sharp pullback to the 50-day moving average. Another one that's probably a little bit extended here. Don't want to chase it after the bounce, but we're going to hear from Franco Nevada next week. They report earnings, so we'll see what they have to say. This is an interesting company because they're not not a gold miner per se. What they do is they invest in gold properties and then they collect royalties from these investments. So pretty good business model. I was looking at earnings and sales for the current quarter when they report next week, expecting triple-digit growth. So pretty good fundamentals at Franco Nevada.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what they say next week in that quarterly report. But until then, the in-depth analysis on the market and stocks to keep on your radar will continue tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So make sure you're tuning in. Investors.com/IBD Live is the place to be every morning, 10 minutes before the opening bell through the first hour plus of trade, Ken.
Yeah, it's going to be another busy show tomorrow. Certainly have a lot to talk about. You know, clearly the stock market is pricing in some sort of economic slowdown. It's not sure how sharp it's going to be, not only around the world but in the U.S. And it's also worried about maybe a sluggish corporate earnings environment for the next couple quarters. So we'll be analyzing the market, looking for signs of strength when we see it. But not a great day today. We'll hope for better tomorrow.
Yeah, and we also have insights on this week's Investing with IBD podcast episode. So make sure you go to investors.com/podcast to listen to that now. We have Ross Gerber of Gerber Kawasaki weighing in on current market conditions and the long-term view on Tesla and more. So make sure you check that out. And we have a webinar coming up on March 10th that we're excited about. Arusha Pires and Scott St. Clair are going to share their hits and misses with you. So that'll be a good one. Go to investors.com/webinar for all the details.
Credit to the copywriters too. Nailed it, failed it. I like that.
Yeah, I know. Very clever. So yeah, if you go to investors.com/webinar, you can get that on your calendar now and get an alert when that webinar goes live. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and Ken and I will see you right back here tomorrow.